They have had multiple opportunities to codify Roe into law over the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they haven't done it. And if they're going to keep campaigning on this point, they should actually do something about it.
A pro-choice activist absolutely roasted the weak and embarrassing Democratic leadership in just 30 seconds. So shortly, I will get to this incredible clip, and there's also a second part of the clip as well. I'll also break down in this video exactly how Democratic Party leadership is failing to meet this moment. I'll show you public polling on the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, and I'll also show you examples of at least a couple Democrats that are offering some real solutions. So first here, this is activist Zoe Warren talking to MSNBC at a pro-choice rally about what the Democratic Party did shortly after the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade.
So I received a text message from Joe Biden's campaign yesterday saying that the Supreme Court had overturned Roe versus Wade and that it was my responsibility to then rush $15 to the Democratic National Party. And I thought that was absolutely outrageous because my rights should not be a fundraising point for them or a campaigning point. They have had multiple opportunities to codify Roe into law over the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they haven't done it. And if they're going to keep campaigning on this point, they should actually do something about it.
Absolutely amazing. Amazing. A fantastic argument, a fantastic point. And it also goes to showing you how much more these activists know, how much more just real people understand than the news actors on television. Because how often have you heard this point from any of the news anchors, from any of these journalists, that the Democratic Party has had this opportunity again and again, and not just, in hindsight, but at the time? Why wasn't this made an issue back in 2009 when Barack Obama in 2007 said that he would codify Roe v. Wade, and then later on said it's not a priority? Why wasn't that made into a bigger deal? Why aren't these broken promises made into bigger deals? It's because the media expects politicians to lie. For them, that's part of the game. This isn't about real life. This isn't about humans actually being impacted by these laws. It's simply about the game of politics. This team and what's going on. So for them, lying is part of it. Broken promises is part of it. They don't actually explore these issues and why they fail. And you have here a great point being made that you can't be asking for money over and over again when you have the power and you are unwilling to actually use that power to help people. And on that point, so I'm going to get to the second part of this clip and some other reactions or some responses from a couple different Democratic lawmakers and what they see as solutions. And of course, those leaders or those Democrats with solutions are not in leadership, because leadership, meaning Pelosi, Biden, Schumer, are absolute garbage. But on this point here from Newsweek, quote, "The Dems refused to codify Roe even when they had the power to," wrote screenwriter Thomas Cunningham. RBG refused to retire when Obama could pick her replacement. Biden promised he'd codify Roe, didn't. Trump win is only one part. The other is Dem failure. This is exactly right. There are so many aspects to this that my head spins, because whether it's Obama's failure to codify it when he said he would and he had the power to, whether it's Biden promising to do so when he was running, whether it's Ruth Bader Ginsburg not backing or not retiring when she should have to let Obama pick her replacement. I mean, there are all these various angles here. And yes, of course, the blame goes on Republicans and Trump for, putting on these completely insane Supreme Court picks. But you can't simply ignore and let this incredibly weak opposition party do nothing. And it's funny even calling them the opposition here, because Democrats are in power. They have the White House, they have Congress. But who's running the show? It ain't them. So they are the opposition party, and not even really an opposition. They are the enabling party. You have the Republicans that, will fight for whatever the hell they want, regardless of laws. And you have Democrats not even using their power to do anything. Now on these emails, so as you see, I have a lot of tabs here. I will try to get through this as quickly as possible, because there's a lot of information here that I want people to understand. But it's also, it's not just, I'm not just going to hit you over the head with information. There's also arguments here you need to understand and understand why Democrats are failing right now, or how they were failing exactly. But just quickly on the email. So this is one example of one of the emails. It's from Nancy Pelosi. saying we can rise up, meet this once-in-a-generation moment, and marshal a response so historic that will make every last anti-choice Republican regret what they've done. Okay, so, you know, a very outlandish, ridiculous email here asking for more money. And I'll show you why Pelosi specifically, why it's so insane for her to be asking for money. But the DNC email as well, there are many versions of this, but here's another DNC example. And I'll link to all my sources below, so if you actually want to read through these emails, the full thing, you can do that. But on the point of Pelosi. So, because this is the issue here is leadership. Pelosi, Biden, Schumer, that is the issue. Nancy Pelosi, just some quick history here. How Nancy Pelosi saved the Affordable Care Act, of course, for-profit healthcare system, not a great healthcare system, but here's how she saved it. By, of course, restricting access to abortion. That's right. So I have more of a breakdown of that in this video that I'll link to below as well, exposing Pelosi's awful record on abortion rights. But just quickly, this paragraph, Pelosi listened patiently as the woman vented. The vast majority of House Democrats were members of the pro-choice caucus, and yet they were being told that they were the ones who had to give in to a stubborn minority. This, Louis Slaughter said, was a betrayal of not just the women in Congress, but the women of America. Nancy Pelosi sided with the minority of anti-choice, forced birth Democrats in both in terms of who fundraises them and also the tiny minority that was in Congress at the time, sided with them over siding with the pro-choice caucus. That's the Nancy Pelosi that is still leading the party today and asking you for money to save Roe v. Wade. Nancy Pelosi thinks abortion is fading as an issue. That was back in 2017. Also back in 2017, Pelosi said, don't kick out anti-abortion Dems. And this isn't just a 2017 issue, as last week, Henry Cuellar, the last anti-choice Democrat in Congress, Nancy Pelosi and leadership backed him over Jessica Cisneros. Cisneros, who challenged Cuellar last time, almost won, was within a handful of votes, a recount full of votes this time. The only reason she lost is because leadership backed Cuellar over Cisneros, backing the last anti-choice Democrat, anti-choice pro-NRA Democrat. Meanwhile, they're asking you for money. If they want your money, they should get some new leaders in, because the fact that Pelosi is still there and is clearly way too conservative for the actual base, for not just the base, for the country. Look at every single poll when it comes to abortion access, when it comes to abortion, when it comes to Medicare for all, when it comes to raising taxes on the wealthy, when it comes to practically every single issue, the vast majority of people side on the progressive side of that issue. Overall, not just Democratic voters, but when you take Democratic voters specifically, oh my God, it is like 95 to 5 in terms of progressive policy in support versus not support. So these people are just out of touch, completely out of touch with where the country and, of course, where their party actually is. Now, as I showed you, you want more breakdown. If you want more of a breakdown on the Pelosi thing, you can check out that video. I'll link to it below and above on YouTube. Nancy Pelosi read a poem after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. That was her reaction. Not discussing the next steps, not discussing a plan of action, what needs to be done right now, what they can do with their power. No. Read a poem. Good God. Biden, of course, no better. He posted a factoid. Here's his factoid from Twitter. They have made the United States an outlier among developed nations in the world. That's true. They have. But are you Neil deGrasse Tyson or are you the president? Because what the fuck is this? Apologies for my language. But you are the president. Discuss what you can do with your power to actually do something. And I'll get to, again, some examples in a bit here. Starting with AOC. So AOC on Meet the Press reacting to this news, and we'll get into some of her suggestions.
But also what I believe that the president and the Democratic Party needs to come to terms with is that this is not just a crisis of Roe. This is a crisis of our democracy. The Supreme Court has dramatically overreached its authority. We had two conservative senators in the United States Senate, Senator Manchin and Senator Collins, come out with a very explosive allegation that several Supreme Court justices misled them during their confirmation hearings and in the lead up to their confirmation. This is a crisis of legitimacy. We have a Supreme Court justice whose wife participated in January 6th and who used his seat to vote against providing documents that potentially led to evidence of such to investigators in Congress. This is a crisis of legitimacy, and President Biden must address that.
And on that point, AOC also went on to say that I believe lying under oath is an impeachable offense and violating federal law, and not disclosing income from political organizations, as Clarence Thomas did, is also potentially an impeachable offense. So if you had someone like AOC in a position of power in leadership in the Democratic Party, maybe you would see some movement on this. But considering it's Nancy Pelosi, expect nothing. And she also went on to she watched this clip that I showed you earlier and reacted to it. And I'll also get to the second part of this clip, as well, as I said at the beginning of this video. But she goes on to say, we have been sounding the alarm about this for a long time. Some may want to go after the messenger, but we simply cannot make promises, hector people to vote, and then refuse to use our full power when they do. We still have time to fix this and act, but we need to be brave. So she goes on to say specifically what can be done. Restrain judicial review, expand the court, clinics on federal lands, expand education and access to Plan C, repeal Hyde, which currently bars the use of federal funds to pay for abortion, hold floor votes codifying Griswold, Obergefell, Lawrence, Loving, etc., which are rulings that legalize contraception, same-sex marriage, and vote on Escobar's bill protecting clinics. We can do it. We can at least try. So there are just some very specific examples of what Democrats can be doing right now to try and win your vote in November, showing they have some actual fight. They should be using whatever power they have right now to try and do what they can on this issue. And here is the power they have to do what they can right now. And currently, they're not doing any of this. So again, we will see if that changes. But considering leadership, considering who the president is, I highly doubt it. Now, quickly, before I get to the next clip here, in terms of how this is actually impacting Democratic voters, so this is one poll, CBS News, that I'll be referencing here. So more Democrats are motivated now by the issue than they were before the decision. So 50% of Democrats report this decision will make them more likely to vote, up from 40% last month when overturning Roe was a possibility, but not yet a reality. So it is motivating some Democratic voters, but how much will that actually translate into votes in November? Because often we see these big news items, when they hit immediately, and people are really motivated by them and they're bothered by them. And then, months pass and they don't forget about it, but that motivation isn't quite there. So this is why you have to have the party currently in power, the Democratic Party, actually try and do something in the meantime to protect people, to help people. And it's not just about votes. It's about doing what is necessary to actually help lives. Forget about the votes for a second. Do what you can with your power to help people. And if you do that, the support will come. But if you don't support people while you have power, then you can't expect them to come out and vote for you. All right. I think I have another clip here. So this is the second part of that first clip.
What are you most worried about, Jillian?
I'm most worried about what comes next, because Roe versus Wade was a precedent for Obergefell versus Hodges, Loving versus Virginia, Irving versus Texas, gay marriage, interracial marriage, and privacy in the bedroom. And those, as Clarence Thomas came out yesterday, they're going to be falling like dominoes.
You come from Texas. You're in Austin, Texas. There's a trigger law in place in Austin in 30 days.
Yes.
Abortion's going to be banned in your state.
Abortion has been banned at 6 weeks in my state since last September, which is an essential all-out ban because most women don't even realize they're pregnant before that point. And there are women in Texas who've already died and have already been arrested for having an abortion or a miscarriage, because we can't really tell that.
It seems like you have obvious anger towards the Democratic Party because you feel as if they've missed chances to codify Roe up until this point, and then here we are. What does that mean for you when it comes to the midterm elections and getting more Democrats elected to move forward with trying to codify Roe?
Well, when it comes down to the primaries, which I think are coming up in the next couple months, It means that we need to get as many people to the polls as possible to vote for more progressive Democrats. We need to get the old white Democrats out of office and put in new, younger people who will actually defend the rights of women and people all over this country. And then when it comes to midterms, we need to make sure that we have those same people who voted for the progressive people in the primaries coming back to the midterms and voting again, and making sure that these more progressive Democrats get into office and can actually make the change that we need.
So look, anyone out there, any, diehard Democratic voter that says, oh, you need to vote. Oh, these young people, it's all their fault. They're not voting. This activist clearly understands the need to vote. She is discussing what needs to be done, who needs to be in there to actually protect these rights. But you can't expect everybody to come out and vote when you have power and you're doing nothing with it. Blaming the voter does not magically make the voter come out to vote. What actually helps bring people out to vote, again, a large chunk, around like 40%, don't normally vote. Democrats win if they can access those people and bring them out. The way you motivate those individuals is by actually delivering while you have power, showing that you are willing to do something with your power. If you're going to keep asking for money and asking for votes and doing nothing, you can't simply expect people to come out to vote if you try to make them feel bad for not voting. That's not going to work. You actually have to deliver. Now, I'm going to get to one last clip from another lawmaker showing or discussing what she thinks needs to be done. Quickly here on some polls, though, from CBS News. Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. 59% disapprove. 67% of women disapprove. Overturning of Roe v. Wade is a step backward for America, says 52%. Among women, impact of Roe v. Wade overturn on women's lives will make it worse, says 56%. And likelihood Supreme Court will limit same-sex marriage and access to birth control. 57 and 55% majorities say both are likely to be overturned or limited. And that's largely, I think, because of what Thomas came out to say, Clarence Thomas, in the decision that basically said that, yes, those rights are next. And last poll here. Things in America today are going 81% say badly. Not at all surprising to see that. All right, Elizabeth Warren, here's what she wants to see done, and I think she's right on point.
This court has lost legitimacy. They have burned whatever legitimacy they may still have had after their gun decision, after their voting decision, after their union decision. They just took the last of it and set a torch to it with the Roe versus Wade opinion. I believe we need to get some confidence back in our court, and that means we need more justices on the United States Supreme Court.
There you go. Elizabeth Warren calling to pack the court. I think that is exactly the right thing to do. That is, again, within their power, what they can be doing right now. And Biden has come out to say that he is not going to do that. Now, Bernie Sanders, while he was running, he had a bit of a different approach I'll get to shortly, but his response to this on Twitter says, overturning Roe v. Wade and denying women the right to control their own bodies is an outrage and in defiance of what the American people want. Democrats must now end the filibuster in the Senate, codify Roe v. Wade, and once again make abortion legal and safe. So this is what he said back when he was running. So at the time, he also was not for packing the court, because he says, if we pack the court, then if the GOP takes over, they'll pack the court. In my opinion, that's a bad argument, because you can say that about anything. Why pass any law? Because maybe the next ones come in and they'll change the law. That's I think, not the right way to do politics. But that said, he also had this idea that I think isn't terrible and is equally as effective. So he says, he suggested another alternative. It may be possible to rotate judges off the Supreme Court and onto lower courts. A federal judge has a lifetime appointment, Sanders told Rule. The Constitution doesn't say that lifetime appointment has to be on the Supreme Court. It's got to be on a federal court. So his idea is basically rotating out these judges, essentially sort of, I guess, quasi-term limits here, and ensuring that, these people aren't on there for their whole lives. Many different ideas here, many different potential solutions, or at least opportunities to do something. And at this point, none of it is being explored by Democratic leadership.